Monster High has always had a diverse set of characters, but has also always had controversy when it comes to parents letting their children watch the movies and shows. But why was that? Mainly because their outfits were a little too mature, and the fact that they were monsters, but never for the reasons that I'm going to name in this video. So, without further ado, if Yah chose me, he can definitely choose you. Let's get in this video. Love my life, my love, my home. So most of my opinion on why I think that kids shouldn't be watching this movie is going to be explained while I'm talking about the plot of this movie. With that being said, if you haven't seen the movie and you want to see the movie, I think you should go watch it first and then come back to this video. Maybe leave a comment and tell me your opinion about what I've said and how you actually feel about the movie. With that being said, nothing that I'm saying in this video is to bash Nickelodeon or to deface the movie or anything like that. This is purely just my opinion and how I felt during watching the movie, just my experience. Please excuse my throat clearing or anything like that. I do have like strep throat, whatever it's called. So the story starts with the main character Claudine at a skate park with her head covered so that she can live normally in the normal world. She's riding around and she ends up falling into another boy and her hood comes off, and this is their reaction. That's my keyboard. So after that ridiculous scream, she goes home and finds out that her dad is throwing her a surprise party. You can clear as day see in the back photo that she has a mom that is a werewolf and a dad that is a human, making her a transhuman, which reminds me of this. In Genesis 6, verse 1 through like 4, the Bible states that the sons of God, which are the fallen angels, had married the women on earth and they had children with them, which were called the Nephilim. This reminds me of Claudine. In my eyes, this is literally just them playing at that, but not trying to make it a big deal. But to go forward, she goes and shows her father the acceptance letter she gets from Monster High, in which he becomes concerned because he is human, and that is a full monster school.
What's this?
That is my acceptance letter to Monster High.
He starts off with telling her no, but then ultimately decides to just let her go. Yep. Clear as day, that is a portal that she is about to go into, and it looks kind of like this. And we know the tragedy that happened at that event. This is Michael Jackson's representation of that same thing. Now I'm going to explain what it is. In the 1500s, a artist drew a depiction of hell, and this is what those two artists were mimicking, and clearly what the movie was mimicking as well. And you get where they were going with that. And that's just allegedly. But to go on, he reminds her that she's human and tells her to conceal that part because monsters don't like humans one bit and they won't like her being there. So she makes it to the school, and there's greetings happening. All the kids are kind of signing in, and one of the parents is talking to the headmistress. The parent is Dracula, and he is concerned about witchcraft.
Witchcraft is secretly being practiced on campus.
Oh dear, that's very serious.
It is an abomination!
Although I agree with his disdain for it, it's clearly that we have two different reasons why we don't think that's good. I find it interesting that he just said that he doesn't want witchcraft around his child, but when Claudine goes to find her room, she is told that the room will find her, which means that there is magic all about the place around them, which means that witchcraft is basically being done all over the place.
Excuse me. How are we supposed to find our dorm room? Did they email us something? Or
You don't find your room.
your room finds you?
School is a lie.
I just don't agree with the way she came up looking like a robot and she turned her head to the side like that. Like, how may I assist you? Like, I would have walked away from her. She looks weird. She looked like a creep. I would not even be talking to her. Like, I would have just asked somebody else, especially after she came and she was like, "Nope, you don't find your room. Your room finds you." I would have been like, "Okay, what kind of meds is she on?" Cause sis, she took everything Gulia said with a grain of salt, and she wouldn't ask somebody else. Like I said. Lo and behold, the building was enchanted, and the room did indeed find her. When she enters her room, there are three cards there for Frankie Stein, Draculaura, and Claudine. She meets her roommates right after this. Here is where we get the alphabetic representation that I personally do not agree with because this movie, when you first boot it up on Paramount Plus, it says the age range for this movie is 7 plus. Why is a 7 plus seeing representation of ABC? Should not be happening. I know that people are like, well, they should be represented because yada, yada, yada. I'm going to be completely honest. What 7-year old needs to know anything about this? The target audience has no business knowing anything about the ABC community. I'm just going to be real. This is one of the bigger changes in the movie because they had a lot of subtle changes, like the headmistress being changed from white to black, and little things like that that can go over your head if you're not paying attention or you're not, you know, you don't know anything about the previous movies. But Frankie Stein was originally a female character, right? Um, we can say, "Oh yeah, well, it's a Frankenstein, so it really doesn't have a gender anyway. It has all these different body parts." Well, see, that's where they're getting y'all because that's the whole point of them doing that. They're doing that on purpose. They want you to sit up here and accept it or acknowledge it or be okay with what they're trying to put in your child's face at the end of the day. Allegedly, but put it this way, your kid is going from 6 and under only seeing two genders, right? It's just, that's what they've seen. And then when they're 7 and they turn on Monster High, they see something they can't comprehend. And that's where they learn it from first. Not they got to ask you, but they seen it on TV. And you may not even know that they've seen it. This is by no means trying to put any shade or hate at the ABC community, but this is just for children. Let's be realistic. Who wants their kid being confused about something like this that early? It's not the time for them to even be learning about that. They should be playing and trying to make friends, not trying to worry about things like this. That's all I'm saying, not anything else. I'm not worried about bashing them or anything like that.
Right? I'm Frankie. Pronouns they, them. I'm only 15 days old.
Hi.
Claudine.
So they introduced this to children then inevitably they turn around and they also tell you how to do it, how to introduce yourself to other people if you decide that you want to be like Frankie Stein. Shortly after their conversation, we are met with Draculaura, the daughter of Dracula, who had his concerns earlier about witchcraft in the school. Moving forward, Frankie Stein and Claudine are walking down the hall, and then we're cut to Cleopatra with her friend Laguna, trying to make sure that she looks good so that she can approach her ex. She walks over like the complete narcissist she is and tells him that she's over him, and he proceeds to go in his locker like he doesn't give a, you know. Um,
He walks away from her, annoyed with her antics and her behavior, and Laguna regroups with her, claiming that he wants to be with her and he would like to restart their relationship, which was completely a lie. Then Frankie and Claudine walk up, and Cleo proceeds to be a bully. Claudine comes to Frankie's rescue immediately after.
Disagree.
Aw, who's this lost little doggies?
Who you calling little?
Okay.
so we find out who Claudine's love interest is going to be, that being Cleo's ex, which is a reoccurring theme, something that already happened in the older movies, except Frankie was the main character, so at one point she kind of liked him and yada yada yada. But anyways, we saw him and her meet, and talk for the first time. He was just explaining that Cleo was a complete butthead, which we already saw that. We already know that she's a narcissist. Claudine meets up with headmistress, and it's just a welcoming. And then we get to see her accidentally change into a human for a couple seconds because she feels nervous and scared about her being asked about her father, which is human. And yeah, we see her change from being a monster to a human here. Nothing really big going on. This is the first time we ever see her shift, and it's out of fear. She runs away, but it makes, the plot a little thicker. And we see expel the enemy, which assumably is talking about her because she's the enemy to them. They don't like humans. So, we're assuming it's her. Out of complete fear and confusion, Claudine goes and asks Frankie if she knows whether, humans can turn into, or monsters can turn into humans. And Frankie has an epiphany because of all the different brains she has and tells her, yeah, they can if they're half breeds, basically. So they get into class, and we get a couple glances from Claudine to Deuce, signifying that they're interested in one another. And the teacher asks, what's the monster's biggest fear? So their biggest fear or biggest threat being humans, Claudine finally gets to see that it's not even a lie what her father was saying. She's starting to realize that, it's kind of true and that they all kind of do fear him. And by the way, there's a lot of singing scenes that I'm not talking about, and it's a lot of stuff I'm probably going to skip so that I can get to the main points of what I want to say here and what, I feel is important. So, because her teacher tells them about Hyde and his experiments, she curiously wants to know, more about everything and, where his lab was and everything like that. Like, she wants to get closer to the stuff because she wants the part of her that is human to be eliminated so that she can be full monster. So he quickly, you know, assumingly as a teacher, wanted her to get more knowledge and likes that fact that she's excited. And he tells her where his Dr. Hyde where his experiment journals were. So she goes and inevitably she does find the books, which, as you can see, that looks like Scribble Scrabble. So I don't even know how she thought she was reading anything. Like, I just found it interesting how they had her like studying the book. Like, she was really up in there, like looking down at the pages, like she knew what that was saying. So the building ends up coming alive while she's trying to study this book, and she ends up getting scared again and triggers herself turning human, in which Frankie ends up, finding out, seeing her turn fully human. And that's, how Frankie ends up getting in on the plan of trying to figure out how to get her to be a full monster. So Claudine shows Frankie the books from Hyde, and Frankie understands the scribble scrabble, explaining that it's code. And then Frankie goes on to tell Claudine, what it says, and they start going on a Scooby Doo mystery hunt to find his laboratory, to find out if he has the cure or whatever like that. After their conversation, they head back to their room, and in the hallway, they see Deuce. And, Deuce is interested in Claudine. He just, trying to be friends with her, talking to her, and whatever like that. She gets nervous and she runs away, but Cleo overhears the conversation and comes to Claudine, Frankie, and Dracula's dorm room. Or is it a dorm? I don't know. Their living area, living quarters, and, confronts Claudine about liking Deuce. So while she's confronting her, we see the first glimpse of Draculaura doing witchcraft. She goes and she casts a spell on Cleo, making her, gain a pimple, something small and stupid. But, further down in the line, I'll explain, why this is way worse than, this little pimple was not the bigger picture of why the witchcraft is really bad in this movie. So as soon as everybody goes to rest, Claudine and Frankie finally go out and they get to the door, which has no handle, and they, can't open it. And this is another moment where we see Draculaura doing more witchcraft.
Power potion bring me motion. Holy mother of Minotaur! What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Witchcraft! What? No!
So they find out she's doing witchcraft, and they basically embrace her and whatnot. And Claudine ends up telling her about her situation as well, about the fact that she's half human. Then they show Dracula the door, and they find out that it does have a lock, but it needs a, like a physical hand to touch it or whatever like that. Dracula decides that maybe there's a spell that she can use in order to open the door. So she ends up finding a spell, and she shows Claudine and Frankie, but she's afraid that the spell is too high ranking for basically a witch of her caliber. So the great friends that Claudine and Frankie are, they push her to do more witchcraft and tell her that she can do the spell. She just has to practice and keep trying. So they all start to go and get the ingredients for the spell. So, skipping their wild goose chase, they did find all of the ingredients, and she does come and start to do the spell on the door, right? I would play a clip of, her doing the spell on the door, but unfortunately, in my experience, this spell that was done is an actual spell, an incantation that is real, allegedly. Now, when I watched the movie actually had a spiritual effect on me. And this is where I come to talk about the fact that I don't think that children should be watching this movie. So initially, this movie came out in 2022, which I never watched it in 2022 because it was on Paramount Plus and I didn't have that. Nobody was about to be paying for Paramount Plus. You got to pay for Disney Plus, then you got to pay for Netflix, all this stuff. So at the time, I didn't have Paramount Plus. So I have Paramount Plus now in 2023 when the second movie came out. So I ended up watching them both. And while watching the first one, in this scene here where these doors were being opened, me being a full Christian, I'm not going to shy away from that. Like, I believe in God, I speak to God daily. And, he basically explained to me that this was literally just a portal being opened. Like, she didn't open the door, in the movie. She didn't really open the door. She couldn't. The magic didn't work. But it wasn't about opening that door. It was about opening the door to demonic spirits in your child's life. That's what this was about. And the reason I can say that is because when I watched this movie, I actually felt the door open while I was watching it. So that's why I don't think kids should be watching this, because kids are way more vulnerable than adults when it comes to stuff like this, spiritual stuff, because adults are more, we're more understanding on, spiritual aspects. Children are not, you know, aware of that. So if your kid is getting a spell casted on them and they don't know, how can they fight? How can they counteract? And if you're allowing your kid to watch this movie and you don't even know that this movie is casting spells on your child, how can you counteract? Now your child is, has a door open to these spirits because of the witchcraft, the actual witchcraft allegedly being done in this movie. Now I'm going based off my opinion and my experience with the movie. So the night I watched this movie, that throughout that night I didn't rest. I kind of didn't pay attention to the effects as much. I was just not resting, but I work overnight, so I usually, my sleep pattern is off that way anyway. So I rarely sleep, night times. But the next day when I did eventually go to sleep, I had sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis, a lot of people say that's like something that just happens. It's something to do with, it's a medical thing, which, if you know anything about the spiritual realm, it's not a medical thing, it's a spiritual thing. I had sleep paralysis after watching this movie, in which, what do we say, the movie invoked spirits and it opened a door to spirits. And although I did pray, there was still a fight in my dream. I had to fight in my dream against these spirits. So what I'm saying is, your child is liable to have to fight. Even while I was researching, while I'm trying to get footage of the movie and everything like that, hearing her do the spell again, I had to fight a second night. So I'm this is all happening while watching this scene. So, in my opinion, this was real witchcraft. It's alleged. I'm not going to say that it really is, but I just find it weird that I don't have sleep paralysis. So, it's not a normal occurrence. But it's weird that as soon as I watch a movie that claims to have witchcraft in it and says that it's opening a door, that I have sleep paralysis and something is trying to hold me down. Why is that? Not only did I experience a fight in the spiritual realm after watching this movie. Somebody in my family also experienced the same thing. We watched the movie on the same night, and the she slept that night and basically was attacked as well in her dreams. So it annoys me, it bothers me, it really hurts my heart that this is in a kids movie, and kids are so vulnerable. Like they don't have, you know, they don't know anything about a lot of this stuff. Like, yes, we talked about, the ABC community being represented, but that doesn't even hold a candle to the fact that they are casting spells on children. Like, this is a big deal. Like, it was so different. Like, you can look back and we had things like Harry Potter, which probably did the same thing. Or if you go to when I was younger, we had like Wizards of Waverly Place. Wizards of Waverly Place made you be like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I could do those spells and this and that." But then the older I got, the more I realized they were really opening the door to us wanting to be witches and warlocks. Why would you want your child to be a witch or a warlock? It's such a different time than it was 10 years ago. Like, this is real, and your kids are watching this. Our kids, our next generation is watching this movie, and it's basically opening a portal to whatever spirit wants to come and jump on them. That's not okay. The other spell that she happened to do earlier was a levitation spell. When Claudine and Frankie found out that she was doing witchcraft, she did some kind of levitation spell. And when you think about it, you're like, kids are like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool, I wish I could levitate. That would be so fun to be able to do that." They paint witchcraft and stuff like that. They paint it in such an innocent, fun light. There's nothing innocent or fun about witchcraft. And, you know, Wizards of Waverly Place didn't call it witchcraft. They just said that they were wizards. You know what I mean? The word witch and warlock did not come up. It was just wizards. So it was sugar coated. It was games being played on words and stuff like that. There was no specifics when it came to that stuff. But then now they're blatant about it. They said she is doing witchcraft. They are calling her a witch in this movie. It's not, the same thing as the Wizards of Waverly Place or even the Harry Potter. I don't recall anything talking about that. Now they're saying it blatantly. Now, a Harry Potter might have said that. I didn't watch Harry Potter that much. I would have to go ask somebody older than me. But I know Wizards of Waverly Place never said that. To end the long winded rant about this witchcraft so that I can finish up the end of this movie, I would say the only way to combat witchcraft is Jesus Christ. You can't combat witchcraft with more witchcraft. You can't manifest better life. That's not a thing. Like astrology and all that, being woke, being spiritual in that aspect is not gonna save you from these things. Having crystals is not gonna save you from these things. Only thing that can change the way you feel or help you through situations like this is God of this universe and Jesus Christ. You have to know both of them, and then you will be able to get through situations like this. That's the only reason why I was able to endure these things. Because if not, I would have been tormented. This could have easily destroyed me if I wasn't walking with God. So to fast forward, after the witchcraft is unsuccessful, they head back to, the campus, and they're greeted with Cleo and the headmistress, in which they find out that Cleo is being a snitch, and she told that Draculaura was doing witchcraft. And she knew because she's an Egyptian goddess and she knows a lot about witchcraft. So while they're in the midst of their discussion, the school starts to react once again, shaking, and this gargoyle falls. And before it could fall on top of Cleo, Claudine saves her, and Cleo gets a sense of mind and realizes they're not really bad people and she needs to stop being so mean. So after everything happens and they're sent back to their dorm rooms, once everybody goes to rest, Claudine decides to leave the school altogether because she feels that it is her fault that the school is falling apart and reacting because she is not of what they call true monster heart. She is half human and she feels like it's her fault that everything is starting to go wrong. So she goes back to the portal and she leaves back to the normal realm or Earth or whatever. So Draculaura and Frankie come to the normal realm as well to get Claudine. Claudine, it doesn't feel like she belongs at the school. So she tries to run away and she ends up falling and realizing that she can open the door because she can turn into human form, which the door needs a human hand. So fast forward, they go back to the door. Claudine uses her hand to open the door and they get in. So they're all admiring his work, the dusty laboratory and everything like that. And Claudine immediately sees the cure. And while she has a moment to herself looking at the cure, she is thinking over her father and the fact that if she takes it, she'll be erasing the part of her that her father brought on. Like, she'll be erasing her father off of her, basically. And she basically hesitates and doesn't even want to do it anymore. So their teacher comes in and he basically explains that he wanted someone to come open the door all along because he knew that he couldn't get in because he can't do what Claudine does, transforming like that. So he wanted to be able to get the cure himself because he didn't want to be part human. And come to find out, Hyde is actually his father. And he just wanted the cure so he doesn't have to endure the same thing. He doesn't want to be human at all. So him looking demonic like this, he does take the cure and this is what he turns into. So that's what he looks like and what he transforms into after taking the cure. And then he basically goes mad and starts stealing people's souls, is what it looks like to me. So he steals Draculaura's power, and the girls run and hide from him after Frankie provides a distraction. And, they lock themselves in a room until they can figure out what to do. Frankie doesn't have anybody's number, and they need to get help. So Claudine comes up with a plan that Frankie should just go live because she has one friend on social media and it's Cleo. So she goes live and, asks Cleo for help, in which she calls Deuce, which he happens to be a waiter at the place where Claudine is supposed to be giving a speech at the moment. That's the main reason she wanted to be full monster, because she wanted to be able to give the speech purely as a monster. But yeah. So once he finds out that, they're in trouble, he comes running and they all kind of just go to help them. So when they all group up against their teacher, Deuce steps up and he goes at him first, trying to use his, what is it? His power to turn things to stone because he is Medusa's son. And it backfires. His power is stolen, and inevitably, he is the one that gets turned into stone.
You start finally got to stare into your eyes.
So Claudine panics, seeing him turn into stone and right in front of her eyes. She ends up going full human. And I just feel like she is so adorable. Like, I think this girl is so cute as Claudine. Like, despite all the things that I've said about this movie, about what's wrong with the movie, I still enjoy the characters. Like, I don't dislike Frankie. I like Frankie's character. Like, the character is amazing. I like it. I even like the fact that Claudine is like able to do this. This is so cute to me. So they all band together as the group of friends that they've always been from movie one. They band together and they decide that Claudine is going to be the one that is going to do the heavy lifting in this fight. So Claudine walks up fully human. He tries to turn her to stone with Deuce's powers, but as long as they don't look him in the eyes, there's no problem. She shows her phone using it as a mirror, and he turns himself into stone. All of their powers are then released, and they receive them again back. So Deuce finally sees her as a complete human and embraces her physically and also as a person. After the whole ordeal, she waits for her father with Dracula, and her father comes through the portal. And she walks away thinking that she is about to have to go home. So she goes to address headmistress wanting to stay. She lets Claudine know that she will be able to stay and that she never was the reason that the school was reacting the way it was. The only reason it was reacting was because the teacher was an imposter and they embrace humans, giving her father a chance to be basically the ambassador of humans, and she gets to stay at the school. Her friends and frenemies send her a howl of appreciation when she gets to stay, you know, solidifying that they all are happy that she gets to be with them. And yeah, that's basically how the movie ends. There's a bunch of singing in between all of that stuff. But yeah, we're not talking about the songs. The songs were great, but that's not really important. So, did I like the movie? Absolutely. I liked the movie, It was very nostalgic for me because I've always loved Monster High. This is like one of my favorite things, as a kid. So coming back and seeing them finally get a live action version of it was amazing. The only problem was mainly the witchcraft and, the other things that we talked about. That kind of saddened me, but overall I did like the movie. The movie was enjoyable. But would I, if I had children, would I allow them to watch it? Probably not. Just going to be honest. But was it a good movie? Yeah. But stay prayed up, I would say. Stay prayed up. Keep your protection on because you can watch anything nowadays and it can do anything. You you wouldn't even know that it's spiritually attacking you. So I would just say stay prayed up, stay connected to God because that's the only thing that can protect you from these kind of things. Nothing else can protect you. So I would stay prayed up and stay with God. And if you don't know God, get to know God. Hey, like I said, if Yah chose me, he can choose you. Peace. Disingenuous